Alright, I'm going to take the lead and give you a long, flowing speech-style piece about Teng Jing Feng Fujii Kaze written as if it's meant to be spoken on a stage, not explained or instructed. No outlines, no commentary, just the speech itself. When we speak about music that doesn't simply entertain but quietly rearranges the furniture of the soul, we eventually arrive at the name Teng Jing Feng. Not loudly, not with spectacle, we arrive there the way you arrive at a memory you didn't know you missed. His presence in modern music feels less like a debut and more like a return, as if something gentle and honest had been absent for a long time and finally found its way home. In an era that rewards speed, volume, and endless self-assertion, Fujii Kaze stands calmly in the center of the noise and chooses sincerity. That choice alone is revolutionary. He was born in Okayama, a place not usually framed as the center of global pop culture, and yet perhaps that distance from the spotlight is exactly what shaped his sound. From a young age, music was not an accessory in his life, it was the air moving through the house. Jazz, classical music, enka, western pop, hymns played on an old piano, these weren't genres to him, they were simply emotions wearing different clothes. When you listen to Fujii Kaze, you can hear that upbringing clearly. His music does not feel curated for an algorithm. It feels lived in. There is a rare kind of confidence in someone who does not rush to explain themselves, and that confidence defines his artistry. He sings about loneliness without begging for sympathy. He sings about love without trying to own it. He sings about ego and release, about the struggle between wanting more and learning to let go, and he does so without preaching. That balance is difficult. Many artists either hide behind irony or drown their listeners in confession. Fujii Kaze does neither. He speaks plainly, and somehow that plainness cuts deeper. His voice deserves attention not because it is flashy, but because it is intentional. It carries warmth without softness, strength without aggression. When he moves between registers, it feels natural, like breathing. There is no strain, no sense that he is trying to impress. And yet, the technical control is undeniable. You hear it in the sustained notes, in the subtle vibrato, in the way silence is allowed to exist between phrases. Silence, in his music, is not empty space. It is part of the sentence. Then there is the piano. Not as decoration, not as background, but as a conversation partner. Fujii Kaze does not play the piano to dominate the song, he listens to it. His chords often arrive like questions rather than answers. Jazz harmonies slip in quietly, gospel progressions rise like prayers, pop melodies remain accessible without becoming shallow. The result is music that feels both sophisticated and deeply human. You don't need musical training to feel it, but if you have it, you recognize the craft immediately. What makes his work especially striking is its spiritual undercurrent. Not religious in a rigid sense, but searching. Curious. Restless in the most peaceful way. His lyrics often circle around ideas of surrender, humility, and acceptance, themes that many modern artists avoid because they don't sell power or dominance. Fujii Kaze seems unafraid of vulnerability that does not seek validation. He sings about releasing resentment, about forgiving oneself, about realizing that chasing approval is a losing game. These are not trendy messages. They are timeless ones. And yet, despite the depth of his themes, there is joy in his music. Real joy, not manufactured positivity. You hear it in the playful rhythms, in the sudden lifts of melody, in the way his body moves when he performs. He dances not to perform confidence but to express freedom. Watching him on stage, you don't get the sense of someone acting out a persona. You get the sense of someone being exactly where they are, exactly as they are, and inviting you to do the same. His rise to international recognition did not follow the usual blueprint. There was no aggressive marketing campaign trying to define him for the world. Instead, people found him. Clips circulated. Songs crossed language barriers without asking permission. Listeners who did not understand Japanese still felt understood. That is the mark of music that communicates beyond words. Emotion travels faster than translation. Fujii Kaze also represents a shift in what global audiences are willing to embrace. He does not dilute his identity to become universal. He remains deeply Japanese in his sensibility while being globally resonant. This balance matters. It suggests that authenticity is not a limitation but a bridge. By standing firmly in who he is, he allows others to meet him without distortion. There is also something quietly radical about his relationship with fame. He does not seem consumed by it. He acknowledges success with gratitude, not entitlement. He speaks openly about ego, about the danger of believing your own hype, about the importance of staying grounded. These are not the words of someone trying to construct an image, They are the reflections of someone actively resisting one. In a culture that often confuses visibility with worth, that resistance is powerful. His albums feel less like collections of singles and more like emotional landscapes. You move through them the way you move through seasons of your life. There are moments of frustration, moments of release, moments of laughter, moments of stillness. The sequencing matters. The pacing matters. It is clear that he thinks in terms of journeys, not just moments. And perhaps that is why so many listeners feel personally connected to his work. Not because he tells them who to be, but because he reminds them that it is okay to slow down and listen. To themselves, to others, to the quiet truths that get buried under ambition and fear. His music does not promise to fix you. It simply sits beside you and says, "You're not alone in this." In the end, Fujii Kaze is not just an artist you admire from a distance. He is an artist you walk with. His songs become companions during late nights, long drives, moments of doubt, moments of clarity. They don't demand attention, they earn trust. And that trust, once given, stays. So when we talk about Fujii Kaze, we are not only talking about a singer, a pianist, or a songwriter. We are talking about a presence. A reminder that gentleness can be strong, that depth does not need to shout, that music can still be a space for honesty in a world that often rewards performance over truth. And in listening to him, we are not escaping reality. We are, in a quiet and profound way, returning to it. Got it? I'll continue directly, same speech flow, no explanations, no structure talk, no counting, just an extended, uninterrupted voice. And when you stay with his music long enough, something subtle happens. You stop listening for the hook. You stop waiting for the chorus to hit. Instead, you begin to notice how the song breathes. You notice how it waits. Fujii Kaze understands patience in a way that feels almost ancient. His songs are not in a hurry to arrive anywhere. They trust that if you stay, meaning will meet you halfway. There is courage in that kind of restraint. Especially now. Especially in a time where attention is currency and silence is often mistaken for weakness. Fujii Kaze leaves space on purpose. He allows emotions to unfold without rushing them into something consumable. That space becomes a mirror. Listeners bring their own stories into it, their own regrets, their own hopes. The music does not compete with those feelings. It holds them. His lyrics often feel like conversations you have with yourself at night, the honest ones you usually avoid during the day. Thoughts about whether you're living the life you meant to live. Whether pride has disguised itself as strength. Whether love has turned into possession. He doesn't offer solutions. He offers recognition. And recognition, when it's genuine, can be healing. You can hear this especially in the way he approaches themes of ego and release. He doesn't condemn ambition, but he questions attachment. He doesn't shame desire, but he asks what happens when desire controls us. These are not dramatic declarations. They are quiet observations. And that quietness gives them weight. It invites reflection rather than reaction. There is also a deep kindness embedded in his work. Not the kind that performs goodness, but the kind that understands human contradiction. His songs acknowledge that people fail, repeat mistakes, hurt each other, and still deserve compassion. That perspective feels rare. It feels necessary. It reminds listeners that growth does not require self-hatred. Watching him perform live, you sense an unusual alignment between body, voice, and intention. Nothing feels disconnected. His movements are loose, almost playful, yet grounded. He smiles without calculation. He closes his eyes not for effect, but because he's listening, to the band, to the room, to himself. The stage does not inflate him. It becomes a shared space. That shared space is important. Fujii Kaze does not position himself above his audience. He stands among them emotionally, even when physically elevated. His performances feel less like exhibitions and more like gatherings. Like everyone present has agreed, without speaking, to slow down together for a while. And maybe that is why his international appeal feels so organic. People across cultures respond not because they are told to, but because they recognize something familiar. The search for peace. The exhaustion of pretending. The desire to let go without disappearing. These feelings do not need subtitles. His visual aesthetics mirror this philosophy. Clean, uncluttered, often playful but never excessive. He seems aware that mystery does not require darkness and that depth does not require heaviness. Lightness, in his work, is not the absence of seriousness. It is the result of understanding it. There is also humility in how he speaks about his own journey. He does not frame success as a destination. He talks about learning, about unlearning, about being wrong. That openness keeps his art alive. It allows evolution without betrayal of self. Many artists struggle with this balance. Fujii Kaze seems to treat it as a practice rather than a problem. As his career continues, what becomes increasingly clear is that longevity is built into his approach. Not because he is chasing relevance, but because relevance naturally follows sincerity. Trends age quickly. Honesty does not. Music that is rooted in genuine inquiry continues to resonate long after its release. His work also challenges the listener to reconsider what strength looks like. Strength, in his world, is the ability to remain soft without collapsing. To feel deeply without drowning. To stand firmly without hardening. This reframing is quiet, but it is powerful. It suggests a different way of moving through life. And perhaps that is the true gift of Fujii Kaze's music. Not distraction, not escape, but companionship. The sense that someone else has walked through similar questions and chosen to respond with openness rather than armor. His songs do not shout encouragement. They sit beside you until you remember your own. So the longer you listen, the clearer it becomes. This is not music meant to dominate charts or define eras in bold headlines. It is music meant to age with you. To sound different at 20 than it does at 30. To reveal new meanings as your life changes. That kind of art does not burn fast. It glows. And in that glow, listeners find permission. Permission to slow down. Permission to feel without explaining. Permission to exist without proving. Fujii Kaze does not demand admiration. He invites presence. And in accepting that invitation, people often find something they didn't know they were missing. A moment of genuine calm in a world that rarely pauses. That is why his music stays. Not because it insists, but because it understands. And understanding, when offered sincerely, has a way of echoing long after the sound fades.